it's almost unacceptable at this stage of the game. It'd be like if I refuse to use email. And if you're not thinking about the counter when you're constructing the original offer, you're one, making yourself vulnerable for that person to just get that counter, take it on the spot, and now you've lost them. It was all for naught. You should be spending your time on how to 10x. And so allocate your time, and therefore the leadership team that you need underneath you to allow you to do that.
In a world where AI is rewriting the rules of work faster than anyone predicted, how do you build a team that doesn't just keep up, but sets the pace? Matt Jahansouz is the Chief People Officer of Quince, the manufacturer-to-consumer brand redefining how luxury essentials are made and sold. From $50 cashmere sweaters to premium bedding, Quince has crossed $1 billion in revenue and a $10.1 billion valuation. We'll explore why Quince treats AI resistance as a deal breaker, the detailed playbook behind closing elite talent in a bidding war, and why founders should stop solving 2x problems and start thinking about 10x. As part of our limited series on talent in AI, we explore how leaders are building teams for an AI-driven world. Today, we're excited to be joined by Matt Jahansouz. Matt, thanks for joining us.
It's good to be here.
To start us off, if you were advising a founder who is building a company from the ground up today, how would you tell them to structure their people organization differently than you would have 5, 3, even 2 years ago?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a couple of different things that I probably focus on. I think one, sometimes there can be a view of I'll hire my people leader a little bit later. I'll kind of figure it out until then, or I don't really need a senior person. And so you delay it and convince yourself that either you don't need it or you want to run it yourself, or you can use like external folks to help you with recruiting. And I think the earlier you get the right leader in who can help you think about talent in a different way, get different folks to the table, help you kind of take ideas around what you want your culture to be and put it into practice. That's just an important thought partner to have early. So don't delay kind of the senior people leader that you'll eventually need. I think maybe related to that, sometimes it's easy to hire a junior person, and they will quickly be kind of overwhelmed with admin and maybe a process facilitator when you think about recruiting more than anything else. And I think you're just not going to get maximum value out of what that seat could be. So I would certainly think about recruiting and HR separately, particularly at that stage. I would be, looking for a seasoned exec recruiter who understands the space and the key roles and could put in process, but be out there really representing your company and getting top talent. And it makes sense in a world where, again, sometimes you maybe want to save money and hire a more junior person, but then you end up spending a significant amount of money on external search firms. And so, having that in-house expertise who understands your company and your culture and your context and can, recruit people in, I just think that's invaluable. And similarly on the HR side, again, a person who can really help you think through org design and onboard your leaders and start to set up performance management practices. The earlier you get those things right, I just think the company and the culture benefits tremendously.
I could not agree with you more. And workforce planning is, of course, a hot topic out there today with people trying to forecast. How would you advise leadership teams to think about workforce planning when it's genuinely unclear kind of what roles will exist?
Workforce planning is tough. It's constantly changing. I've never seen it done perfectly, and I don't even know that that's possible, particularly in hypergrowth or kind of early stage where just so much is changing so quickly. And so trying to predict what you're going to need 3 years from now, it's almost wasted time.
Right.
And so I think, pull up the timeline a bit, try and break things down maybe into a 6 or 12 month, focus of what are the priority roles that I need today to help run this company. Then think about roles in terms of there's going to be some just foundational, talent, skill set, teams that you need to survive to kind of get the day-to-day done. You're then going to need some talent that are going to be focused on growth, and maybe some that are kind of maybe more strategic. And so how you categorize talent and roles, I think, will help you understand, which you need to go get first and which are maybe exciting, but you can probably put off a little bit into the future until you get some of these other things. I think prioritization is maybe the most important. Sometimes you'll go in and see, a given leader who's come in is running 37 different searches.
Right.
There's just no way, even if you as the leader trying to spread yourself across 37 different searches because you want to meet each of those candidates. And so it's, what are your top 5? And go give those the focus and the attention that they need and, get those done. But I think prioritization is really important. I think, I'd also advise folks, think about what you want your org to look like a year from now and build towards that and put the roles that you're prioritizing in context of what do I want this role to be as we head into 2027. Because the reality is the company's going to change so much, the needs.
It's so
what
true.
You're gonna, if you're hiring for today's org needs, by the time you bring all of that talent in, because it takes time.
It does.
You're already going to have hired the wrong team or, the wrong, skill sets based on where the company is.
I agree. We're definitely seeing shorter forecasting horizons and the prioritization that you're articulating. Some of the companies we work with are actually, they've gone from the yearly forecast or a 3-year horizon to 90 days, literally 90 days. Yeah. And in order to do that, you have to really master the art of prioritization. Yeah. How would you suggest that leaders do that?
It takes a lot of work. It takes time. It takes discipline. You've got to be able to invest in it. So if every 90 days something's going to change, then have dedicated conversations to kind of go through and question is what true 90 days ago true today. So I think make it a priority and build a cadence around it. Look, I think probably one of the most important things you can do, especially if you're thinking about a founder, I'll go through the exercise. Where are you spending your time? And where are you getting leverage from the existing organization? Where are you not getting leverage from the existing organization? Where would the company most benefit if you were allocating more of your time? So if over here you're spending a significant amount of time in finance because we don't have a senior finance leader, and we could bring in a senior finance leader, and that's taking up 25% of your time that could be allocated to speaking to the external market or understanding future growth opportunities, whatever the priority might be. How can I, go and bring a leader in or build out a team that gives that leader true leverage and an ability to go focus on the future? Even with my current CEO, sometimes I'll push on, you're spending time focusing on how do we 2X? If we get the right leaders, right, they're going to be able to go and execute to get us to a 2X. You should be spending your time on how do we 10X? And so allocate your time and therefore the leadership team that you need underneath you to allow you to do that. And then I think you just got to have hard conversations, and they should be real debates. Otherwise, you're probably not prioritizing as ruthlessly as possible. And then your leaders see that, and then they think about their roles in the same way. Also thinking this role is going to just take a very long time. There's not a lot of people, or we've got a high bar, we've got unique requirements, and so let me give myself that lead time. If I need that person a year from now, better start that process in the next 90 days.
Matt, overall, we're seeing a trend of leaner organizations from startups to scaled companies. How do you best manage and engage people, especially top performers, when teams are leaner than ever?
I think a lean environment is a ripe environment for top talent. I think those people generally want that kind of opportunity because in a lean environment, you'll often find you've got a chance for a bigger remit, bigger learning, and therefore bigger impact. And I think top talent is constantly, looking for kind of that stretch opportunity where if I go somewhere else and I'm plug and play and I'm kind of in this box, I'm definitionally limited in terms of just how much I can do. Then the question becomes, what's too lean? How do I think about investing in the team? And being very thoughtful and deliberate around that, and engaging then your top talent of, similarly to the other conversation, how do I get you more leverage so you can go do the things that you're great at? Or am I lean to a degree that's actually costing me, value that I could be getting from, the folks on the ground? So I think you've got to be thoughtful about it, but I think it should be an advantage, particularly in this day and age where tech and kind of other solutions can get you pretty far.
And with lean teams, it feels like a lot of companies are circling kind of the same talent and offering crazy offers and compensation packages. So it feels more competitive than ever to close top talent. You've been in talent destination companies that's competing and getting that top talent. How do you engage and close those candidates in these highly competitive environments?
I think we could probably do a podcast just on this topic alone. Getting talent to the table is, relatively easy. Extracting top talent is incredibly difficult. And so you do need to be really, really thoughtful. And I think if you're just kind of, hoping that it'll work out or think you ran a good process or you gave them a good, offer, I think if that is top talent, you're selling yourself short on whether you're actually going to close that person. Now, I think going all the way to just like make every offer super aggressive and just like beat the market endlessly, one, it's financially irresponsible and not sustainable. But, maybe more importantly, if, a prerequisite to make a really aggressive offer is an incredibly strong vetting process. You've got to have confidence in your recruiting process that you are talking to top talent, because otherwise you're just throwing money away, and you're also going to demoralize the existing team as they see like these kind of extraordinary offers being given to mediocre folks that come into the organization. So a prereq to an aggressive offer is a very strong process that gives you as much confidence as you could have that you've got top talent. I think then you've got to have a closing plan, and I think that closing plan begins probably halfway during the interview process. Once you start to think like this could be our person, you're starting to understand motivations. What are they going to make this decision on? Who else is probably going to be involved in this decision? Do you have different stakeholders that you talk to? Are there different mentors? What does your partner or spouse think about this? Where are you within the context of your career? You're thinking about taking on more risk and maybe making a home run swing where you can kind of go do something like truly extraordinary, or you're kind of looking for the next promotion. So I really want to spend time and kind of understand like how are they thinking about making this decision, because it's an incredibly important decision.
Do you train your hiring managers to do that as well, or
hiring managers,
probably some of them do
it, everyone,
yeah.
And look, when we've got anyone kind of senior that's going through the process, I try and bring in different folks to just see like here's how we want to think about this. Right, in full transparency, after we leave this podcast, I'm going to go meet with a senior candidate that we feel really confident about, who's accepted our offer, and some people will be like, all right, once they sign the offer, you're good. Again, that's
never done
that's
until they're in the
moment
building.
that I'm most anxious. And so really think about your closing playbook. I mean, I'm going to sit there and talk to the person of like, have you contemplated what a bid back's going to look like?
Yep.
And in that scenario, how are you going to think about it? What's that conversation? Think about have you actually gone through and like, what's the resignation conversation? Who are you going to talk to? If, again, you've got a sense that they're top talent, they're going to get bid back, like you're probably going to have 3 different conversations. Like, are you ready for those? Back to if kind of all of those things are there and you're confident you're talking to top talent, look, the most important thing you can do is you got to get ahead of the counter, right? If you're talking to top talent, very, very good chance that they get a bid back.
That's right.
Some type of counter. Maybe it's financial, maybe it's a bigger role, but that tends to be a very good indicator, and I've used that in previous life of like, if someone didn't get a bid back, maybe I don't have as good of a signal as I wanted. If they did, I know. And so at that point, you now have a responsibility to get ahead of the counter. And if you're not thinking about the counter when you're constructing the original offer, you're one, making yourself vulnerable for that person to just get that counter, take it on the spot, and now you've lost them and it was all for naught. And so then, kind of going through the exercise of like, all right, if I have some understanding of, where they are, where they want to be, all right, now where's that other organization likely to come, or what are the other things that they could put on the table? Because they might just accept that because they've got more trust with that other organization. But more importantly, I think the second that you do counter and beat that bid, you've lost trust at maybe one of the most important and earliest steps of, that candidate relationship. And I think you've got to be like this detailed and, focused and at every single level, have a closing plan.
How are you handling employees who are resisting that change?
Yeah, I mean, to start there, not to be overly aggressive, it's almost unacceptable at this stage of the game. It'd be like if I refused to use email.
Yeah, that's right.
So if I was talking to a candidate who resisted AI or just didn't believe in it or was unwilling to kind of, bring it into their day-to-day work, I'd likely move on pretty quickly. I think we're thinking about it a couple different ways. One, it's an incredible opportunity, particularly for an early stage company. We don't have years of legacy and kind of historical ways of working that in order to put AI in place, I have to break those down or drive change management. We've still got more or less a white sheet of paper that means if we get to it quickly, all we do is build, a more powerful company in the future. And so if we get it right, it becomes competitive advantage. I think the organization, the founders have done an incredible job already baking that into, virtually every element of what we do that's differentiating our business model and our company. I think we've made it very, very clear in any and every forum, with employees, with leaders, that's just got to be a mandate that you're constantly thinking about, as you're building a process, as you're hiring a team, as you're laying out a new way of working, as you're putting in different, types of tech and tooling and reporting. Start with how could this be done better, and leveraging, the tech and tooling that's available right now. We are, we've got kind of a weekly all-company meeting. We've built in a dedicated portion where different folks across the entire organization can kind of raise their hand and showcase directly to all of their colleagues. Here's how I am using AI. I figured this thing out, and it's, we're getting in there and like, how did you, kind of set this up? What work is it taking? What is it replacing? What was challenging? What's interesting? So every single week, we're just showing different wins.
There's a constant dialogue.
And this sense of like, if I'm AI savvy, I didn't realize like this tool could help me with that thing.
Right.
Or I've only gotten familiar with ChatGPT, but I didn't realize. So I think that just, kind of best practice sharing, as well as like, look, to your left and your right, your colleagues are figuring this out. So maybe to the person who's a little more reluctant or just hasn't, understood it as well as you'd want them to, I think sometimes we just show them.
And also now, I'm sure, leveraging AI to do that. Does AI necessarily accelerate the trend towards global talent pools? Does it make it easier to recruit in these different geographies, or are there still reasons to hire locally?
Yeah, I'll start with the second part. I think there's always going to be a reason to hire locally.
Yeah.
I think as soon as you go into international expansion mode, either from a business perspective or kind of your workforce, understanding locally, everything from the talent market to the different competitors to the type of kind of comp and incentive structures that motivate, and it's just that context and that nuance, and I think if you skip it or dismiss it or don't understand it, you're probably not going to do as good of a job building a team in a new local market and executing as possible. So I think you always want to pay attention to kind of local variation and the nuance that exists. Still a people business, and things are different around the world, and technology can't find everything out about what matters with people. That said, AI should absolutely be able to accelerate, kind of the speed at which I can find the right talent, or the ways in which I engage with them.
Matt, we wanted to end with a quick rapid fire round where you can try to answer these questions in just a quick sentence or two.
Okay.
First question, what is the biggest mistake you see people make when it comes to hiring?
There can sometimes be a tendency to overvalue pedigree and functional expertise. At the cost of getting mindset and culture fit right. You can convince yourself that those will get me far enough, and I think those stories usually don't work out too well.
Yep, totally agree. What's one thing HR people teams should stop doing immediately?
Process for the sake of process, stuff for the sake of stuff. I think if you're defining your priorities and agenda on does this make the company more commercially successful? And does this help set my talent up to grow and make a bigger impact? Those are your two criteria. And if the things that you're doing aren't, driving those two priorities, then you might not need to do those things.
Yep. And lastly, what is most exciting about hiring and building teams right now?
Like everything we just spoke about. It's a whole new world. And I think it's not just thinking about talent differently. You get to think about how to build your organization differently.
Right.
Yep.
And that immediately then translates into how you hire and build teams. But I think the people who are most thoughtful of like, how's this actually going to change the way in which I build a team, and give that the real thought that I think it deserves, I think those are going to be the winners. So it's I think this is a massive sea change where if you get ahead of it, you can build a world-class company that just accelerates so much faster than everyone else.
I love it. And one final question for you, Matt. You've talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of candidates. You've been with Quince for over a year. Why are people joining Quince right now?
There's so many different reasons. It's like my real view. I think we are completely redefining, an industry in a way, a business that's kind of been executing a very similar model for, decades. I think it is a deeply ambitious organization that's trying to build a once-in-a-generation company by rethinking every single step along the end-to-end, kind of consumer and e-commerce, business model. I think it's fun, it's fast, and I think we're doing something that affects virtually every single person. Like, how do you shop, and how do I democratize luxury and, give, great quality products to virtually anyone around the world who wants them at a price that makes sense? I think it's a pretty cool topic.
Yeah. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. That was absolutely great, really insightful, and I am definitely on my way to go buy even more from Quince and recommend that everybody listening today try it out if you haven't already. But really appreciate that. And we're big fans of what you're building over there, and thank you for being here today.
No, thank you for the opportunity. This was a ton of fun.
If you want to stay ahead of the talent game and build world-class teams in the AI era, subscribe to Notable Perspectives so you never miss an insight.